Do you ever just realize your mom doesn't see you as a person, but like a walking ATM? That thought hit me about 3 weeks ago. I was at home, still in my hoodie, reheating some cold-ass pizza, when I got this group text from my mom, Sharon, and yeah, that's her name now, not Mom in my phone anymore, just Sharon. Before we get to the texts though, let me back up for a sec. I'm Jesse, I'm 27. I do remote cybersecurity work, which is just a fancy way of saying I help dumb people not click scam emails. The money's solid, quiet life, 2-bedroom apartment in Boise, a big-ass monitor setup, and no roommates. I've been on my own since I turned 19. You could say I dipped out early, but if you knew my family, you'd understand. Now, Sharon, she's complicated, out in public. She's all southern charm, perfect hair, sugar-sweet voice, bless your heart kind of woman. But inside our house, nah, she ran that place like a damn emotional dictatorship. Her way or the highway, every favor came with strings. Every compliment felt like a setup. She'd guilt you for breathing wrong if it meant shifting blame off herself. Anyway, let's go back to 3 weeks ago. I get this group text. It's titled Family Escape 2025, like it's a goddamn marketing campaign. There are 10 photos attached to tropical resort in Florida, palm trees, beach chairs, some spa itinerary. I scroll through confused, and then I see it. Room assignments. Room 1, Sharon plus Kevin, her boyfriend. Room 2, Jesse. Room 3, Sierra, my younger sister. I laughed. Out loud. Not because it was funny, but because WTF, I hadn't agreed to anything. I hadn't even talked to her in 2 weeks. Then, a follow-up message. We thought this would be such a great opportunity to reconnect. You've been doing so well. Jesse, it would mean the world if you helped us cover the booking. Help cover? LOL, it was all booked already. She didn't ask me. She assumed. I was pissed. I didn't reply right away. Honestly, I needed a minute to breathe. My stomach was in knots. This wasn't just a vacation. It was a setup. And I'd seen this movie before. Back in January, I got a raise, nothing crazy, but enough that I didn't stress rent anymore. Sierra had visited me for a weekend a while back and saw a Venmo notification. She was all, damn, you ballin' now, and I laughed it off. Thought nothing of it. Big mistake. By the end of that weekend, she was asking subtle *T, how much is your rent? You use that budgeting app still. Do you think I could stay with you for a bit this summer maybe? I should have known then that Sharon would sniff the money out next. She always does, like a damn bloodhound for pay stubs. A few days after the group text, I get voicemails. First from Sierra, come on, Jesse, you're being dramatic. This is a family memory thing. Then Sharon, I carried you for 9 months. You think you'd be where you are now without me? Even my Aunt Tanya chimed in with some family is forever. Don't let money ruin that. Screw that. I wasn't paying for a $3,000 vacation just because I made decent choices and didn't crash my credit score by 21. I finally responded, I'm not paying for this trip. If y'all want to plan something affordable and split costs, I'm in. Otherwise, count me out. Cue the meltdown. Sharon called instantly. I'm disappointed in you, she said, her voice all syrupy with spite. This is exactly why people say you've changed. Damn right I changed. Then it got worse. 2 days later, and I swear I'm not making this up, I get a $2,300 charge on my Amex. For what? 3 airline tickets to Miami, all under my name. I sat there, mouth open, just stunned, not even angry. Not yet, just frozen. I called the bank. Yep, confirmed. I called the airline. They said it was booked by Sharon Fields. I nearly threw my phone through the wall. So I call her. Did you seriously just use my card to book those tickets? She giggled. Oh, don't be so uptight. Jesse, I had to reserve them. We were going to pay you back eventually. Besides, they were non-refundable. I swear, I saw red. That moment, that's when something broke. I didn't yell, I didn't curse, I just said, Okay, then I hung up. I canceled the card, reported it as fraud, got the tickets flagged and canceled. No refund, no trip, and I didn't say a single damn word to them afterward. I waited. About an hour later, Sierra called. Her tone was sharp. You canceled the tickets? We were literally packing. I said nothing. Then Sharon tried again, this time furious. You didn't really think you were coming, did you? She spat. You're not even part of this family anymore. Cool, I said, hung up. I wish that was the end, but 2 days later, a letter arrived. No return address, just a printed doc with some bootleg legal threats. Financial interference, emotional distress, failure to fulfill familial obligation. It was signed by some guy named Richard T. Lawson, ESQ. Spoiler alert, he doesn't exist. I looked him up, nothing. No law firm, no state bar record, just some fake title and a Gmail address. They really thought they were slick. Honestly, I laughed. At first, but then the weight of it hit me. They really saw me as a resource, a wallet. Not a son, not a brother, just a guy with good credit and no boundaries. And the part that hurt the most? I let it get this far, but the worst was still coming. The next day, around 10 a.m., I got pinged on Slack by my manager. Deja, real chill woman, super smart. We usually talk once a week, but this message felt weird. Hey, Jesse, got 5 minutes? That feeling in your gut, like when a cop pulls up behind you and you know you're not speeding, but suddenly you're rethinking every life decision. Yeah, that. I joined the call. Deja looked serious, like she'd been rehearsing what to say. Hey, I just wanted to give you a heads up. We got an email this morning. I blinked. From who? Someone claiming to be your family? They said you'd committed, I don't know, some kind of fraud. I just sat there, blinking like an idiot. She continued. It had what looked like a police report attached, and something about financial instability. I flagged it to HR. Obviously, it's nonsense, but I had to tell you. I muted my mic for a sec, took a deep breath. I could feel my ears burning, not just because of what she said, but because I knew who did it. Sharon. She was trying to tank my job, not content with just stealing my money. She wanted to ruin me professionally. You ever feel betrayed so hard it's like a gut punch and a cold shower all at once? That was me, sitting in my own apartment, shaking like a damn chihuahua, realizing my own mom was out there crafting fake police reports and emailing my boss. I didn't even call her this time. I didn't text Sierra either. I just sat with it. Like, what the hell is this even about anymore? It wasn't about the trip. It wasn't even about the money. It was about control. Sharon had always controlled everything. Where I went, who I saw, what I did with my own paycheck. And now that I was grown and independent, that power was slipping, and she hated it. Later that afternoon, I opened my email inbox, expecting something work-related. Nope. There it was, from Sharon. Subject: you left us no choice. In the body a few lines, something like, we had to protect the family. When people spiral, sometimes others need to intervene. You've been making dangerous decisions. Jesse, we're worried. Attached screenshots, heavily edited conversations that made it look like I was threatening her. A Google Doc labeled formal statement. A blurry photo of me at a party from like 2018, drink in hand. Red eyes from Flash, looking like every 20-something ever. I swear I just stared at it, completely frozen. This wasn't concern. This was a campaign. She was building a whole fictional narrative where I was some unstable, vindictive man-child, so she could justify everything. And you know what the worst part is? For a second, just a second, I questioned myself. Am I overreacting? Am I actually the asshole here? But then I remembered. This is the woman who once faked being sick so I'd miss prom and stay home with Sierra. who lost my college acceptance letter for 3 weeks because she didn't want me moving out of state, who used to tell me, "Don't be selfish," every time I did something that wasn't for her. Nah, I wasn't crazy. She was just that manipulative. So I got to work. First, I called HR, told them everything. Thankfully, Dana from HR was cool. She actually said, "We've seen stuff like this before. Family can be unpredictable." Understatement of the century. She logged everything and said they'd block emails from any personal domains trying to impersonate me or submit character claims, whatever the hell that even meant. Next, I locked everything down. 2-factor authentication on every account, password changes, I deleted old emails, shut down my Venmo history, updated my LinkedIn just in case they tried to weaponize that too. I was still doing all this when I heard the knock on my door. Not a friendly one. Like, cop knock. Boom, boom, boom. I looked through the peephole and surprised Sierra. I didn't want to open it. Every instinct in me said, "Don't," but I cracked the door an inch. 5 minutes, she said. Her eyes looked tired, like she'd been crying or hadn't slept. Her tone, somewhere between guilt and denial. I didn't know she was going to go that far. I opened the door a little wider. She stepped inside, took off her coat. No hi, no hug, just sat on my couch like we were cool. "You know she emailed my job?" I said. Sierra nodded, biting her lip. That wasn't part of the plan. "Plan?" I asked. My voice was cold. I mean, not plan, just... She said if we pushed a little, you'd come around. I almost laughed, but it wasn't funny, not even close. She thinks she can break me with pressure. "I didn't think it'd get this bad," Sierra mumbled. Then she dropped the real bomb. "She's talking to Aunt Lydia and Uncle Rob now, telling them you're isolating, spiraling, that maybe you inherited Dad's issues." I stood up. "What issues?" "You know how she talks about him?" She whispered. Nope. I wasn't letting her do that. "Dad died when I was 11. Car wreck. Sharon always made him out to be unstable. Said he was paranoid, dramatic, emotionally cold, that he abandoned us emotionally before he died physically. Now she was using that same damn script on me." I turned to Sierra. "You believe that?" She didn't answer. That was all the answer I needed. "I think you should go," I said. "No, I think you should go." She looked at me like I slapped her, got up, walked to the door. Before leaving, she said, "She's gonna make you look crazy to everyone. Just be ready." I nodded. "Yeah, I'm ready." I closed the door behind her. Didn't watch her walk to the car, just sat back on the couch and stared at the ceiling. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the birthdays she ruined, all the times I gave in just to keep the peace, all the moments I questioned myself because she had a talent for making everything my fault. And the next morning, I made a decision. I lawyered up. I called an attorney my friend Hannah had recommended a while back when her ex tried to sabotage her job. Dude's name was Marcus Bell, calm voice, no BS, specialized in family harassment and digital defamation. I told him everything. I even showed him the fake lawyer letter from Richard T. Lawson, ESQ. He looked at it for 2 seconds and laughed. She really printed this from a Word template. I sent him everything I'd collected: screenshots, emails, voicemails, even a few social DMs from Sharon's burner account. I'd labeled everything, color-coded it. Yeah, I was that petty and prepared. Marcus said, "Jesse, this isn't just family drama. This is targeted harassment and impersonation. You've got a strong case." He drafted a cease and desist letter that read like a cold slap. No emotion, no apologies. Just any further interference with my client's employment, housing, reputation, or financial records will result in civil action. This is your only warning. We sent it certified mail, tracked it. 3 days later, silence. No texts, no voicemails, Nothing. And then she called. I didn't pick up. But I saved the voicemail. You've made your choice, Jesse. I hope you can live with it. One day you'll understand what you did to this family. Click. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I just sat down and smiled, not because I was happy, but because I finally knew for the first time in years I wasn't under her thumb anymore. 3 days after that voicemail, my landlord called. Hey, Jesse. Weird question. Your mom called our office this morning asking for a copy of your lease agreement. I nearly choked on my cereal. She said you were being evicted and needed help moving out. Wanted confirmation on move-out dates. I was dead silent. Obviously, I didn't give her anything. He said, just thought you should know. Of course. Of course she'd try to sabotage my housing next. Sharon couldn't manipulate me emotionally. Couldn't drain my bank account. Couldn't get me fired. So now she was trying to make it look like I was getting kicked out of my apartment. I hung up and started laughing. Like, full-on losing it laugh. The kind you let out when the absurdity's too much and the only alternative is crying. This woman was relentless. Nay. She didn't want to teach me a lesson. She wanted to erase me. That same day, Marcus, my lawyer, called. We've got enough for a formal restraining order if it comes to that, he said. Her calling your employer and landlord crosses multiple lines. Harassment, impersonation, potential financial damages. I nodded. Let's keep it in our back pocket, but I want to hit her with something first. What are you thinking? Make her feel watched. That night, I posted a vague, calm message to my socials. Boundaries are not betrayal. Protecting your peace is not an attack. Just because someone calls it love doesn't mean it is. Nothing dramatic. No names, no rage, just a little seed. Within an hour, 3 family members DM'd me asking, "Is this about your mom?" And I didn't answer, just left it on read. Let the silence do the talking. That weekend, my old college roommate Ben texted, "Bro, your mom just friended me on Facebook." I groaned. She messaged me, asked if you've been acting paranoid lately. WTF. This was a pattern now. She was reaching out to anyone remotely tied to me, trying to plant this version of me that was unhinged, unstable, dangerous. I didn't respond, didn't need to, because I was done reacting. I was prepping. See, Marcus and I had spent the past week quietly gathering evidence for something more than just a cease and desist. We were building a defamation case. Civil, sure, but it was legit. Digital impersonation, slander to an employer, attempts to manipulate housing. This wasn't just family drama anymore. This was war, and I wasn't fighting it alone this time. But then, the unexpected happened. Sierra texted, not from her number, from a new one. You were right. She turned on me. I stared at it for a while. No emojis, no long explanation, just 2 cold, heavy sentences. I didn't reply, not because I hated her, but because I didn't have anything left to give. I used to carry that girl on my back, paid her phone bills, covered her rent 1 month, even gave up going to my college graduation because she begged me to stay home and help mom after some emergency that turned out to be her planning a wine tour with Sharon. All of that didn't matter the second I said no to a damn vacation. Now she was feeling the burn. I felt bad. I did. But I also knew this was how it always ended with Sharon. Sooner or later, everyone became a threat. I went for a long walk that night. No music, no podcasts. Just me, the wind, and the cold. And I thought about something Marcus said the other day. The hardest part of cutting toxic people out isn't doing it. It's sticking to it when they start twisting the knife. And boy, did Sharon know how to twist. Monday morning, my HR contact Dana messaged again. Hey, just a heads up. She tried again, new email, different sender, same nonsense. I thanked her, told her to block it, and offered to forward more evidence if they needed it. "Already done," she said. "We've got your back." And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Safe. Not completely, but enough. Like maybe I wasn't crazy. Maybe it really was her. That week, Marcus finalized the defamation draft. He CC'd me on every message. We were going after her hard. Not for vengeance, not even really for damages, just to make it stop, to have it on record that this woman wasn't just a concerned mom. She was dangerous, beset, emotionally manipulative, financially reckless, and now legally cornered. But just when I thought the storm was calming, it got louder. Aunt Lydia called. I let it go to voicemail. "Jesse, sweetheart, I don't know what's going on between you and Sharon, but she's devastated. You know how she gets. Just please talk to her before it's too late." Too late. Too late for what? She stole from me, tried to get me fired, tried to convince people I was mentally unstable, and I was supposed to what? Have coffee and clear the air. "Nope, not anymore," I replied with a short text. "I'm safe. I'm supported. I don't need anything from Sharon. Please respect that." Lydia read it, never replied. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. I thought it was over when we sent that cease and desist. Thought maybe, finally, she'd get the hint and fade into silence. But people like Sharon don't disappear. They regroup, they reload, and they always come back louder. A few days after I'd blocked the last number she used, I got a weird package at my apartment. No return address, just my name, handwritten like a freaking horror movie prop. Inside, a scrapbook. Yeah, a damn scrapbook. Old photos, torn pages from a baby book, receipts from random school events she supposedly paid for like it was some kind of trophy collection of proof that I owed her everything. There was even a crumpled envelope taped to one page with Jesse's field trip to DC, $75 never repaid. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. It was like she was trying to invoice my entire childhood. At the back of the book, in her perfect cursive, she'd written, "No matter what, you'll always be my son. You can't erase blood." Nah, screw that. You don't get to call yourself mom while trying to ruin your kid's life like a bad Netflix villain. I didn't say a word, just tossed the whole thing in the trash, took a pic for my lawyer, and moved on. But then she went bigger. She showed up. Yep. One random Saturday afternoon, I was cleaning out my fridge when someone buzzed from the lobby downstairs. I checked the camera and holy asterisk, and there she was. Sunglasses, fake smile, a tray of cookies like we were in a sitcom. I didn't answer, didn't move. Just watched her from the monitor as she stood there pressing the button over and over and over, and then she took out her phone and started recording herself. I could see it through the monitor, her monologuing to the camera like, "I came all this way to see my son, and he won't even speak to me. I guess love really doesn't mean anything to him anymore." I was stunned. She was making content, turning her own breakdown into a TikTok saga for sympathy clicks. I took screenshots of the footage, timestamped them, and sent everything to Marcus. "This changes things," he said. "She's escalating publicly now. We can build this into our case." I nodded, but honestly, it didn't feel like victory. It felt sad, deeply, pitifully sad. But it also made things real. No more questioning if I was overreacting. This was full-blown psychological warfare, and the next move had to be mine. I filed a formal restraining order. Marcus handled the legal side. I provided evidence, all of it. The emails, the call logs, the social posts, the visit, the recordings. When the court order was issued, I felt relief like a flood. Like someone cracked a window open in a house I didn't realize was suffocating me. She was barred from contacting me, from showing up at my home or job, from involving any third parties. If she so much as sent a carrier pigeon, it'd count as a violation. And you'd think that'd be the end of it, right? Nope. Because a week later, she tried to get around the order through church. I hadn't been in years, but the place she still attended, they emailed me. The pastor, no less. "Hi Jesse, your mother asked us to reach out. She says she's worried about you and only wants to help." I stopped reading. My jaw clenched so tight it hurt. This woman was using religion as a loophole. Weaponizing compassion. I sent a screenshot to Marcus. He handled it fast. A formal notice went out to the church. Sharon was named, cited, and warned. They apologized, backed off immediately, but the damage was done. That weekend, I finally broke down, not because I was weak, but because I was exhausted. This woman had taken so much space in my life for so long that I forgot what silence sounded like, what it felt like to not be constantly bracing for the next attack. I cried in the shower, sat on the tile like a damn cliche, and just let it all out. Every betrayal, every voicemail, every gaslight moment where I questioned if I was the crazy one. And then I started healing. Not all at once, but in small ways. I cooked a real dinner, went on a hike, spent time with people who actually gave a *T about me. I even started therapy, not because I was broken, but because I was done carrying this weight alone. My therapist, her name's Michelle, said something that cracked me wide open. Sometimes, survivors of abuse confuse peace with guilt, because peace feels unfamiliar. It feels selfish, but it's not. It's deserved. Read that again. I did, like 100 times. That line played on loop in my head as I started rebuilding. I changed my number again, deleted old emails, finally trashed that folder of evidence I'd saved for years like a kid clutching proof that the monster was real. And one day, I walked into my apartment and felt nothing. No tension, no fear, just space, just breath. And that's when I knew I'd won, not because I destroyed her, but because I removed her power, because I chose to end the cycle not with revenge, but with boundaries, with a hard line drawn in ink and fire and court documents. She didn't get her trip. She didn't get her leverage. She didn't even get a reaction anymore. All she got was silence. And that, to a narcissist, is the most painful punishment of all. Sierra showing up again was the last thing I expected. It had been, 6 months of silence? No calls, no texts, no weird mutual friend check-ins, just radio static. Then, out of nowhere, she DM'd me on Instagram. Simple. "Hey, you got a sec?" My first reaction, suspicion, I didn't even open it at first. Just stared at the notification like it might bite. But curiosity, that shit's loud. So I messaged back, "Yeah, what's going on?" And that's when the floodgates opened. She wasn't just checking in. She had info, receipts. Apparently, after the restraining order kicked in, Sharon didn't just crawl into a corner and disappear. Nope, she rerouted, started messaging people from Sierra's side of the family, cousins, ex-friends, anyone she thought might still have some line to me. And she spun an entirely new story, one where she was the victim and I was some unstable, manipulative son who'd isolated myself because of my mental instability. She claimed I had a psychotic break after my dad died. He's still alive, by the way, divorced and living in Arizona, and that I'd always been off, that I'd faked the fraud charges, that Sierra had left me because she was afraid, except Sierra never left because she was afraid. She left because she was overwhelmed, because when my mom blew everything up last year, she couldn't handle the fallout, not with her job, not with her anxiety, not with everything else going on. She panicked, shut down, and now. She was pissed. I didn't believe it. She told me on the phone later that night, but she kept pushing, calling me from new numbers, voicemails, emails. She even sent me a PDF timeline of your breakdown. like it was a damn FBI case file. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I couldn't believe how deep this woman had gone into her fantasy. Sierra paused. I wanted to tell you sooner, but I didn't know if you'd even want to hear from me. I didn't, at least not at first, but I needed to know more. So we met. Neutral spot, coffee shop downtown, middle of the day. Seeing her again felt weird, like a chapter I'd bookmarked and forgotten. She looked different, a little thinner, darker circles under her eyes, but she still had that quiet, steady presence that used to make me feel like the world wasn't completely insane. She handed me a flash drive. I saved everything. She said, messages, audio, screen recordings, even one video call. I blinked. Wait, you recorded a call? She nodded. Yeah. I figured if she was gonna lie about you, I should get the truth in her own voice. I plugged it in later that night. And holy hell, the video call was wild. Sharon, sitting in some dimly lit room, wine glass in hand, going full Disney villain, talking about how Jesse always thought he was better than the rest of us and how it's time someone humbled him. She even joked about sending a fake tip to the IRS. That was the final straw. I sent everything to Marcus. He called me within the hour. We're going nuclear. The next 2 weeks were a legal whirlwind. With Sierra's evidence, we now had grounds for actual criminal charges: harassment, defamation, attempted identity fraud. Marcus filed motions, updated the court, and reached out to a prosecutor contact in the county. Things moved fast. And then came court. Sharon had to show up in person. No more phone calls, no more hiding behind pity posts or church whispers. She walked in wearing pearls like she was headed to brunch, not a hearing. When the judge asked her to speak, she launched into a monologue about how she was just a mother trying to reach her son. But Marcus, he eviscerated her. Point by point, lie by lie. Emails, voicemails, the video. He even had Sierra testify, which, not gonna lie, took some serious guts. By the end, Sharon's face was frozen like glass about to shatter. The judge issued a restraining order extension, 3 years minimum. She was fined for harassment and defamation, and warned that any further contact would be grounds for criminal charges. It was over. Officially, legally, loudly. I walked out of that courtroom with my hands shaking, but my chest light, and Sierra. She hugged me. For real this time, no hesitation. I'm sorry, she said, for disappearing, for letting her fill the silence. I nodded. I get it. Because I did. Sometimes people run, not because they're weak, but because they don't know what else to do when the fire starts. We didn't get back together. Wasn't that kind of moment, but we left on good terms. Clean, clear, human. And I finally felt like my story had a damn ending. That night, I went home, sat on my balcony, watched the city lights blink like a heartbeat I'd finally reclaimed. And I thought about that phrase she used in her video. You can't erase blood. Maybe not, but you sure as hell can walk away from it. And sometimes, that's how you survive. Not by fighting harder, but by letting go. Story 2, my name is Evan Hayes. I'm 29 years old, and last summer, my family erased me. It was a scorching July afternoon in Weyburn, Tennessee. I just wrapped up a long meeting, pitching my startup, a local logistics app I'd spent 2 years building. I came home, sweaty, exhausted, but hopeful. Instead of a welcome back, I found my duffel bag sitting by the door, zipped, packed, waiting. Inside the house, dinner was on the table. My dad, Derek, sat at the head like he was presiding over some court hearing. My mom, Susan, avoided eye contact, and my sister Mallory was scrolling on her phone like she couldn't care less. Hey, I said cautiously, long day. Derek didn't flinch. You're done freeloading. Time to go. I blinked. What, I've paid your mortgage, your electric bill. I gave you $60,000 for Mallory's wedding. He stood up slowly. You're a failure. You don't have a job. You don't have a future. Mallory looked up just long enough to say, You're embarrassing us. I felt the floor disappear under me. I was their son, but to them I was just a wallet. I grabbed the duffel, paused at the door, waiting for someone to say something, anything, but Derek just stared. Susan's hand stayed folded. Mallory didn't look up. So I walked out. The door shut behind me with a final click. I checked into a cheap motel, the kind that smells like cigarette ash and defeat. My startup wasn't profitable yet. My savings were low, but my anger boiling. I opened my journal, a messy book full of app sketches, payment notes, reminders of everything I'd done for them. They kicked me out after I gave them everything. So I started cutting them off. Utilities canceled, water, electricity, internet, all in my name. Gone. Mallory's phone line shut down. She needed it for freelance work. But after that smirk she gave me, click. I froze their joint savings account, transferred my remaining money to a private account, and then I leaked Derek's gambling debt to my cousin Trent, a secret I'd kept for years. Was it petty? Maybe. But it was the first time I chose myself. Nate, my best friend, offered me his couch. The guy fixes cars for a living and always sees the best in people. He gave me a beer and said, They're still your family. Ev, maybe there's a way back. I didn't answer, because something in me had snapped. That night, I got a credit alert. Something was off, but I ignored it. I couldn't handle one more thing. The next day, Derek posted a status in the town Facebook group. Our son turned his back on us. We're without power. Pray for Susan. The comments were brutal. Shameful. He owes them everything. No respect these days. Mallory commented, He's always been selfish. And just like that, they made me the villain. But I wasn't going down quietly. I documented everything. Screenshots, receipts, payments, bank transfers. I posted it online. Calm, clean, truthful. And ended with one line. You can lie about me, but I've got the receipts. The post blew up. Neighbors I hadn't spoken to in years reached out. Old teachers, friends of friends, people who knew I wasn't the monster my parents painted me to be. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving, I was fighting. I was reclaiming my story. The morning after my post exploded, I woke up to 300 notifications, messages, comments, friend requests from people I hadn't heard from in years. It was surreal. Some were supportive, some were just nosy. A few said, I always knew something was off about your family. Then one message hit differently. It was from Miss Emery, my high school English teacher. You always carried more than your share. I'm proud of you. Evan, keep going. That one made me cry, but not everyone was on my side. Derek fired back with another Facebook post. Don't believe everything you see online. Evan's bitter. He's twisted the truth. We took him in when he had nothing. Mallory posted a story on Instagram, a black and white selfie with tears and the caption, Sometimes, people betray you in ways you never see coming. The comments were all sympathy and heart emojis. One person wrote Evan stole from them. I heard it straight from Susan at church. They were painting me like some ungrateful monster, and I could feel the tide starting to shift. So I did the only thing I could. I kept posting receipts, screenshots of the $60,000 wire transfer for Mallory's wedding, a copy of the energy bill in my name, a Venmo transaction paying off Derek's $4,200 gambling debt from last summer. No commentary, just proof. I wasn't trying to destroy them, but I wouldn't let them destroy me. That night, I got a call from an unknown number. I picked up. Evan, a familiar voice said, It was Aunt Teresa, my mom's younger sister, the one who never really took sides. She sounded exhausted. "I just want you to know," she said quietly, "not everyone believes what they're saying. What they did, it's unforgivable. I wanted to thank her, but I couldn't speak." "I see you," she added, "and I'm sorry, but the hits kept coming." One of my app's early clients, a boutique grocery store, emailed me the next day. "We're backing out of the contract. There's too much noise around your name right now." Just like that, I lost 25% of my monthly income. Because of lies, because of a smear campaign from the people I used to call family. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I opened my journal. I flipped to a blank page and wrote, "They want war. I'll give them facts." Over the next few days, I turned my motel room into a war room. Spreadsheets, timeline documents, bank records. Nate watched me from the doorway one evening. "This is a lot, man," he said carefully. "You okay?" "No," I admitted, "but I'm not done." That night, I revisited the credit alert I'd been ignoring since the eviction. It was a flag from my bank, an inquiry into a $9,000 personal loan taken out, in my name. My blood turned to ice. I never took that loan. I called the bank, spoke to someone in fraud detection. They pulled up the file. Looks like it was initiated 6 months ago. The agent said, "Signed electronically from an IP address linked to your home address." My old house. The signature was a poor copy of mine. And the bank statements showed the funds had been used at a spa resort, a designer boutique, and 3 payments to a photography studio. Mallory's brand. I felt like the air had been punched out of my lungs. She didn't just help kick me out. She forged my name and stole nearly 10 grand. Nate found me sitting on the motel bed, shaking. "I have proof," I whispered. "She committed fraud." He sat down beside me. "You gonna take it to the police?" I nodded slowly. It's not just about revenge anymore. It's about ending this. The next morning, I went to the sheriff's office. I filed a formal report, attached every document. I also contacted a legal aid attorney in Knoxville. She reviewed my file and said, "This isn't just a family dispute, this is financial exploitation, and you have a case." By the end of the day, Mallory's account was flagged for investigation. The officer even told me, "This isn't the first time we've heard complaints about your dad either." I wasn't alone. Not anymore. 2 days later, Derek left a voicemail. "You've taken this too far. This isn't how family works. If you come crawling back now, we might reconsider." Delete? I didn't need them to reconsider. I needed them to face what they'd done. I put together one final post. This one wasn't angry. It wasn't emotional. It was a timeline of events. March 2021. I paid off their mortgage for 3 months. June 2022. Covered Derek's hospital bill. October 2022. Sent $60,000 for Mallory's wedding. March 2023. Forged loan opened in my name. July 2023. Thrown out of the house. Attached were documents, screenshots, statements. At the end, I wrote, "Forgiveness isn't owed, especially when the people you forgave keep stealing from you." This time, the town listened. A local news blogger picked it up. The story made the rounds on Facebook and even reached people in neighboring counties. Mallory tried to deny it, said I was misunderstanding the loan. Derek posted again, accusing me of attention-seeking. But it was too late. The truth had cracked through. At the farmer's market that Saturday, an older woman I didn't recognize stopped me. "You don't know me," she said, "but I was friends with your mother in high school. What they did to you, that's not how family behaves." I nodded, speechless, that don't let them twist you into someone bitter. You're better than them. I went back to my motel that night and looked at my reflection in the mirror. I didn't feel better. But I did feel free. The final straw came when Mallory was served with a formal notice. Fraud charges were being filed. The loan investigation was public. The same cousin who once called me paranoid texted. She messed up. Man, you were right all along. I'm sorry. And for the first time in months, I let myself believe it. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't weak. I wasn't the failure. I was the one who survived. And I was just getting started. The courthouse was colder than I expected. Everything echoed heels clicking, pens tapping, chairs sliding. I sat across from Mallory for the first time in months. She looked thinner, paler. Maybe it was stress, maybe guilt. She wouldn't meet my eyes. My attorney slid the evidence across the table. Loan documents, IP traces, purchase records. Mallory's lawyer whispered something, but she just stared down. You understand the consequences of identity fraud, the mediator asked her gently. She nodded, but still said nothing. No apology, no explanation. That night, I sat in my new apartment, a shoebox above a coffee shop Nate helped me find. Small, drafty, but mine. I watched the town's Facebook page from my couch, scrolling through a wildfire of posts. Can't believe what Mallory did. Derek and Susan always acted high and mighty. Evan's a good guy. They ruined him. I didn't respond, just read in silence. It wasn't revenge I felt. It was relief. The silence had broken. People were finally seeing the truth. Mallory's charges became public the next day. Local outlets ran the story, quietly, respectfully, but it was enough. I started getting calls. From former classmates, from a small business magazine wanting to feature my startup, even from my uncle Grant Derek's older brother who said, if you ever need anything, Evan, you call me. Your dad's always been a prideful bastard. I almost laughed. Instead, I thanked him and hung up. Then I sat back, heart pounding, realizing the storm was still swirling around me, but I was finally standing on solid ground. The real surprise came that weekend. Susan showed up at the cafe downstairs. She didn't text first, didn't call, just walked in and asked the barista, "Is Evan here?" I was sipping coffee near the window when she turned and saw me. Her hands trembled around her purse strap. "May I sit?" I nodded once. She sat, slowly, quietly, then pulled out a wrinkled envelope and slid it across the table. Inside a handwritten letter. I should have said something that night. I should have stopped him, but I was scared, I was tired, and I was wrong. She didn't cry. Her eyes were dry, her mouth set, but there was something hollow behind them, a kind of crumbling. You gave us everything, and we threw you out like trash. I see that now. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted to tell you that I'm sorry. She stood before I could respond. I stared at her retreating figure, thin, slow, unfamiliar. I didn't follow her. I just folded the letter and placed it back in the envelope. That night, I opened my journal and added a new line under the page titled Debt Ledger, the one where I'd once listed everything I paid for. This time, I wrote something different. She said sorry, and that's more than I thought I'd ever get. A few days later, the town held its annual fall festival. I hadn't planned to go. Crowds still made me nervous, but Nate practically dragged me there. He said I needed to be seen. And he was right. As I walked through the pumpkin-lined booths and caramel apple stands, heads turned, not in pity, not in judgment. In acknowledgement, people nodded. A few offered quiet smiles. Then a voice called out, "Evan." It was Miss Emery, my old teacher. She rushed over and hugged me. "You were always going to make it," she whispered. I never doubted it. I thanked her, heart swelling. Then I saw him, Derek, across the lot, standing near the cider stand, alone. He looked older, weaker, deflated. Our eyes met. He didn't move. Neither did I. Then I turned away. That night, I sat on my couch, laptop open, inbox flooded with new opportunities. Partnerships, invitations to speak at small business panels, even a local investor who wanted to meet. My startup once a punchline was finally getting traction, and it wasn't just about business anymore. It was about identity, stability, something I'd built alone. Without them? The next morning, a certified letter arrived. Derek was filing a countersuit. He claimed I maliciously damaged the family's reputation and business standing. My hands shook. Not because I was scared, but because I was angry. He was still trying to control the narrative. Still trying to make me the villain? I called my lawyer. She laughed. We've got everything we need. Don't worry. Then she paused. But Evan, I do want to ask something. If he drops it, would you settle quietly? I didn't answer right away. I looked around my apartment, at the thrift store coffee table, the growing pile of business cards, my journal on the desk. Then I said, I won't go after more than I deserve, but I'm not letting him off easy. The case never made it to trial. Derek withdrew his claim after seeing our evidence, but I didn't let it end quietly. I posted one last update online. Some people will burn their bridges and then complain they're stranded. I didn't destroy my family. They did that on their own. I'm just walking away with my head high. No threats, no names. Just truth. Weeks passed, then months. Mallory accepted a plea deal. Community service, restitution, her brand tanked, sponsors dropped her. Derek and Susan sold the house and moved to a smaller place out of town. I never visited, never planned to. One night, Nate and I sat on my apartment balcony with 2 cheap beers. He looked at me sideways and said, "So, what now?" I smiled. I build. And I did. I expanded the app. Hired 2 part-timers. Moved out of the coffee shop loft and into a better space with natural light and a view of downtown. I painted one wall a bright blue, the same color as the notebook I'd used when the storm began. And I started writing again. Not just receipts and grudges, but visions, goals, future plans, because I wasn't surviving anymore. I was rebuilding, from ashes. From nothing. From truth. 6 months after everything exploded, I stood on the stage at a local business conference in Nashville. Not as someone's son, not as the failure, but as the founder of a growing startup, one built out of nothing but persistence, pain, and pixels. The applause felt unreal. After my talk, a young woman approached me. I watched your story unfold online. She said, "It gave me the courage to walk away from my own toxic family." That hit me harder than I expected, because I'd started this journey feeling erased, unworthy. Now, I was someone others looked to for strength. The thing about healing. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's slow, quiet. Some days it's just choosing not to check your estranged family's Facebook page. Other days, it's hanging your first real painting in your apartment and thinking, this space is mine. I got a card from Susan a few weeks later. No return address. Inside, I hope you're happy now. We're not okay, but maybe that's justice. There was no apology this time. No warmth, just bitterness. Like a knife wrapped in paper. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally knew my peace wasn't dependent on her remorse. Around that time, Mallory reached out. An email. "You ruined my life. I had dreams, too. You could have handled it differently." There was no mention of the forged loan, of the $60,000 I gave her, of the years I paid bills without thanks. Just venom. I closed the email, sat there for a while, then I archived it. No reply. Let her scream into a void I'd finally stopped feeding. My business was growing. Not just financially, but in reputation, integrity. One of my proudest moments came when the town council voted to use my app as the official network for local logistics and emergency communication. The same town that once whispered I was a disgrace now printed my name on banners and community newsletters. But I didn't build all this just to prove a point. I built it because I believed in it even when no one else did. That belief that was mine, from day one. One chilly spring morning, Nate showed up with a fresh set of keys. "What's this?" I asked. "To your new place," he grinned. "You're not sleeping above a coffee shop forever." It was a fixer-upper chipped paint, creaky floors, but more space than I'd ever had. I walked through the empty rooms and realized I wasn't just changing locations. I was changing chapters. I hosted a housewarming. People came, Miss Emery, Uncle Grant, even the mayor. Nate grilled burgers out back while I gave a tour of the unfinished upstairs. My desk faced a window that overlooked the skyline, modest but bright, open. Mrs. Keegan, a retired teacher I hadn't seen in years, pulled me aside. "Do you know what I see in you?" she said softly. I shook my head. Someone who didn't just survive. Evan, someone who learned, grew, and still chose kindness. Her words stunned me. Because I hadn't always been kind. I'd been angry, bitter, vengeful. But I'd also told the truth. I'd protected myself. I'd drawn the line. Maybe that counted as kindness too, the kind you give to yourself when no one else will. The biggest shift came unexpectedly. At a city fundraiser event, I was introduced to a woman named Riley, a volunteer coordinator for a local nonprofit. She smiled easily, asked good questions, and didn't mention my family at all. I liked that. We talked for hours. She didn't treat me like a scandal, a survivor, or a symbol, just Evan. And that was enough. Over the next few months, we got close. She didn't push, didn't pry, just gave me space to be human, not heroic. And slowly, I opened up. About the night I was kicked out, about Mallory's loan fraud, about the journal I used to carry everywhere like armor. She listened without judgment. Sometimes, that's all you need. One night, sitting beside her on the roof of my new house, she said, "Your family tried to dim your light, but they didn't break it." I believed her. For the first time, I believed I could still have light. The journal that had once tracked debts, betrayals, and survival plans. I retired it, put it on a shelf in my office with a final message written across the last page. "You were enough the whole time, even when they couldn't see it." I still keep it close, not because I'm holding on to pain, but because it reminds me how far I've come. A year after the eviction, I visited the old house. It had been sold, repainted, and re-landscaped. New owners, new mailbox. It no longer looked like my childhood home, and I realized that place had stopped being mine long before the duffel bag hit the floor. I left a single thing behind, a white envelope. Yeah, inside was a copy of one of the very first utility bills I paid for them. Just one. No message, no signature, just truth. Then I walked away. People often ask me now, "Do you forgive them?" And my answer is always the same. I forgave them when I stopped needing their version of me. I forgave them when I stopped checking if they missed me. I forgave them when I stopped shrinking for their comfort. Forgiveness isn't a gift you give the guilty. It's a freedom you give yourself. Today, I still live in Weyburn. My startup is thriving. Riley and I just adopted a dog named Fig. And I've started mentoring young entrepreneurs, especially those who come from messy backgrounds and broken trust. Because I get it, and I want them to know you don't need a perfect past to build a powerful future. So if you're reading this, and you've been thrown out, told you're not enough, used and discarded by people who should have loved you better, know this: you are not a failure. You are not their lie. You are not broken. You are building. And someday, the world that tried to silence you will have no choice but to hear your truth loud, clear, and undeniable. Just like I did. Story 3. My name is Liam Carter. I'm 31, and the day my father attacked me in a restaurant over a wedding bill was the day everything changed. It was supposed to be a calm dinner, just me, my dad Victor, and my younger sister Chloe. But from the moment I sat down, I knew something was off. Chloe kept glancing at her nails, avoiding eye contact. Victor, though he wore that familiar grin, the kind that never reached his eyes, that smile always came before a demand. I was right. Halfway through appetizers, Victor pulled out a thick envelope, dropped it in front of me like it was a menu, and said, "Chloe's wedding cost 50 grand. You're paying it." Just like that. No discussion, no question, a statement. I blinked. "Excuse me. You heard me," he snapped. "You make more than any of us. You're the big shot now. It's your responsibility." Chloe's eyes flicked to him. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. I could feel it. She knew this was coming. My stomach turned as I opened the envelope. Itemized bills for flowers, a live band, a 3-tier imported cake, and a designer dress that probably cost more than my car. I laughed. I couldn't help it. It was either laugh or scream. "I'm not paying this," I said, pushing it back across the table. Victor's smile disappeared. "You're what?" I said, "I'm not your ATM anymore." Silence. You could have heard a fork drop. The people at the next table paused mid-bite. Then Victor stood. Fast, violent, his chair screeched, and before I knew it, his hand was in my shirt, yanking me across the table. "You ungrateful little," he growled. Dishes crashed. Chloe gasped. A waiter froze. All eyes on us. But in that moment, face to face with the man who used to scare me into obedience, I felt nothing. No fear, no guilt, just clarity. I shoved his hand off me and stood tall, my glasses crooked, my breath unsteady, but my spine straight. "I'm done," I said. "You want someone to blame for your failures? Look in a mirror." And I walked out. Outside, the night air hit me like a slap, cold, brutal, freeing. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, hands shaking, trying to process what just happened. The man who once taught me how to tie a tie just tried to rip it off me in front of strangers because I wouldn't fund my sister's fantasy wedding. It wasn't the money. It was the expectation, the assumption that I owed them my life, my salary, my sanity. I thought I'd feel guilty, but all I felt was tired. Tired of being the fixer, the one who showed up, the one who paid for everything. I started driving with no destination, ended up at an old park where I used to ride my bike as a kid. Funny how your past always finds you when you're trying to escape it. I didn't hear from either of them for 2 days. Then the messages started. Aunt Jen texted, "What did you do to your father? He's devastated." My cousin Matt, "You embarrassed the family, over what?" "A little money." Then came the voicemails. "You don't turn your back on blood." Victor growled in one, "You'll regret this." Liam. Chloe's was worse, soft, pleading. "I know Dad's reaction was a lot, but we need help. I need help, please." I didn't respond, because deep down, I knew this wasn't about a one-time payment. It was about boundaries. And mine had been broken too many times. I wasn't their son anymore. I was their financial plan. Years of memories unraveled like string. The time I skipped college graduation to pick Chloe up from a party gone wrong. The $12,000 loan I gave Victor for a business idea that never existed. The nights I went to sleep hungry so I could afford to keep their lights on. I thought that was love. But love doesn't come with invoices. Love doesn't lunge across a dinner table. The silence that followed was eerie. Days turned into weeks. No calls, no texts, just whispers from family friends and old neighbors who suddenly heard I abandoned my sister. Victor spun a story. said I promised to pay, that I ghosted them, that I was unstable, selfish, cold. And Chloe, she played the victim, posted a photo of her wedding bouquet with a caption, "Some people vanish when you need them most." Thousands of likes, hundreds of comments. But no truth, so I wrote my own. A single post, just one. There comes a point where helping becomes enabling, where love becomes a leash. I've been paying their bills for years. I'm not heartless, I'm just finally choosing myself. I didn't name names, but everyone knew. And the response, massive. Support, DMs, people sharing their own stories of toxic families, of financial manipulation, of finally walking away. It felt like I'd started breathing again after years underwater. I wasn't just healing, I was waking up. And this time, I wasn't going back. The morning after I posted my truth, my phone nearly exploded. Overnight, I got hundreds of notifications, DMs, emails, comments, strangers from all over the world telling me I wasn't alone. Same here. My parents drained my college fund and blamed me. Thank you for saying what I couldn't. I needed this today. It should have made me feel validated. Maybe it did, but part of me just felt tired. I wasn't out to be a hero. I was just done being a victim. But of course, my family had other plans. 2 days after my post, Victor called from a blocked number. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. "Hope you're happy airing our dirty laundry. You humiliated us. Your sister is heartbroken." Heartbroken Chloe had spent $4,000 on floral arrangements and another $7,000 on a dress she'd only wear once. I was the one still paying off my student loans. I deleted the message. Then came the email, long, rambling, from my mother who had been mostly silent throughout all of this. "Liam, this isn't who we raised you to be. We gave you everything we could. This family needs you. Chloe needs you." I stared at that line for a long time. This family needs you. No mention of what I needed, of what had been taken from me. It wasn't love. It was obligation wrapped in guilt. I needed air. So I texted Ezra, my oldest friend and the only person who ever saw my family for what they were. We met at a dive bar 2 blocks from my new apartment. He sat down, took one look at me, and said, "You look like you haven't slept in days." "I haven't." I told him everything. The dinner, the envelope, the lunge, the lies, the fake victim act Chloe was pulling online. Ezra listened, then said, "You need to protect yourself, man, financially, legally, emotionally." He was right, so I got a copy of my credit report the next morning. That's when I found it, a $15,000 personal loan opened under my name 2 months earlier. My chest tightened. I never applied for that. I dug into the paperwork. The address tied to the application, my parents' house. I called the bank. They confirmed the account had been accessed from Victor's IP address. The signature was digital and it looked almost like mine. Just not quite. I couldn't believe it. My own father had forged my identity. And I realized something chilling. This wasn't just manipulation anymore. It was fraud. I called a lawyer, a small-time legal advisor recommended by one of my coworkers. She was young, sharp, and didn't flinch when I explained the situation. "Can you prove it?" she asked. I handed over the bank's email trail, screenshots, and the voicemail Victor left. She nodded. "We have a case." That night, I sat alone with a beer in hand, staring out the window of my apartment, the city lights blurring through the glass. All my life I thought if I just gave more money, more patience, more silence, I'd eventually be seen, loved, appreciated. Instead, they stole from me and blamed me when I said no. Chloe's GoFundMe went up a few days later. "Help us recover from betrayal. Wedding dreams shattered by abandonment." I wanted to scream. It was full of lies painting me as unstable, selfish, even abusive. There were photos of her crying, one with Victor looking sickly and hollow under poor lighting. It raised $67 before people started calling it out. One commenter wrote, "Didn't your brother pay for your car last year and your college textbooks?" Another said, "Funny how she never mentioned him bailing them out for years." The truth had legs, and it was running faster than their fiction. But Victor didn't back down. He sent an email threatening to sue me for defamation. He demanded I delete my post and make things right. I forwarded it straight to my lawyer. She replied on my behalf. Any further threats will be considered harassment. My client has evidence of identity theft. Consider this your only warning. It was the first time I felt shielded. Around that time, I started therapy. My first session was raw. I didn't even know where to begin. But when the therapist asked, "When did you first feel responsible for your family's happiness?" the answer rolled out of me like a flood. I was 10. I said, "Chloe broke her arm falling off a swing. My dad yelled at me for not catching her." That's how it always was. Everything was my fault. Everything I did was never enough. Until my value became entirely wrapped in what I could give, never who I was. One afternoon, I got a text from Chloe. Just 2 words, "Please talk." I stared at the screen for minutes before typing, "Only if you're ready to tell the truth." She didn't reply. Instead, 2 days later, I received a letter. A real, handwritten letter in an envelope with smudged ink and a faint floral scent. "Liam, I don't know what to say. I didn't know Dad used your name for that loan. I didn't ask for it. I swear, I was just trying to have one perfect day. That wedding wasn't about impressing people. It was about feeling normal. Just once. I know I was selfish. I know I let you take the fall, but I miss you, and I'm sorry." I read it 5 times. Then I put it in a drawer. I didn't respond. Not yet. I wasn't ready to decide if that was the beginning of healing or just another mask. But for the first time, Chloe didn't ask for money. She asked for me. And that, more than anything, gave me hope. Not for reconciliation, but for myself. I wasn't the villain. I wasn't the failure. I wasn't the walking wallet. I was just a guy who finally chose to say no. And in doing so, I finally said yes to myself. 2 months after I walked out of that restaurant, everything about my life looked different. Even the quiet, the silence I used to dread had become my sanctuary. No late-night calls, no fake emergencies, no guilt traps from Victor, no surprise bills from Chloe, just peace. For the first time in years, I had room to really think about what I wanted, what I needed, what a life looked like when I wasn't propping up everyone else's. I started building new routines. Morning runs, Sunday coffee with Ezra, weekly therapy, cooking meals that weren't just takeout. I got promoted at work, too. My manager said, "You've been laser-focused lately. You finally seem like you're here." He was right, because I'd spent years everywhere else mentally tied to family fires I didn't start but was always expected to put out. And now that I wasn't, I was thriving. But freedom came with unexpected grief. I missed the idea of family. I missed the little moments, the inside jokes with Chloe when we were kids. Sunday pancakes with Mom, even Victor teaching me how to change a tire. But when I replayed the memories, they didn't feel warm anymore. They felt warped, conditional, like every good thing had been paid for with silence and sacrifice. That's when I realized the difference between love and debt. Real love doesn't ask for receipts. One afternoon, Ezra and I were walking through a park when he said, "You know, it's okay to miss them and still know you made the right call." I nodded, but the lump in my throat told me I hadn't fully accepted it. Not yet. That night, I opened Chloe's letter again, the one where she said she missed me, said she was sorry. I wanted to believe her, desperately, so I wrote back, "Not long, Just a simple note. I don't hate you, but I'm not ready to come back. I need space. If you're serious about changing, you'll respect that. She replied 3 days later. I understand. I'll wait. I didn't know if I believed her, but I appreciated the silence that followed. No pressure, no guilt, just quiet. Then the quiet cracked. It started with a call from my lawyer. Victor's bank is requesting a settlement. She said, they know the loan was fraudulent, they want to avoid escalation. Apparently, the recording we had Victor bragging about using my name had scared them. And him. Fraud charges were on the table. I don't want your money. I told the bank's rep, I just want my name off the debt. They agreed. Just like that, the last legal tether between me and my father snapped. Victor, however, wasn't finished. A week later, a post appeared on a local Facebook group, written by someone claiming to be a concerned family member. It read, just remember, some people get success and think they're too good for the ones who raised them. Money changes people. And sometimes, blood means nothing to them anymore. It didn't mention me by name, but everyone knew. Old neighbors messaged me. One said, I'm sorry they're dragging you like that. Even my mom, who'd stayed mostly quiet, finally broke her silence. She sent a message. This isn't how I wanted things to go, but I can't control your father. I hope you're okay. It wasn't much, but it felt honest. Chloe, meanwhile, stayed silent. Until she didn't. A few weeks later, she texted me a link, a YouTube video. Title, How I Lost My Brother. A hard truth about family and boundaries. I didn't want to watch it. But I did. Chloe sat in front of a plain white wall. No makeup, no designer clothes, just her, vulnerable. She talked about pressure, about growing up in a family where image mattered more than honesty, about how she'd become addicted to approval from dad, from social media, from me. I spent my 20s chasing a version of success that didn't belong to me. She said, I used my brother's kindness like a piggy bank. I let our parents weaponize him. And when he finally said no, I hated him for it. Not because he was wrong, but because he was right. Then she paused, eyes red, and added, if you're watching this, Liam, I'm sorry, really sorry. I hope someday we can talk again, but until then, I'll be working on myself. The video ended with no ads, no monetization, just silence. And I cried. Not because I forgave her, but because I finally felt seen. I didn't reach out, not yet. But I started believing that maybe, just maybe, she was telling the truth this time. Victor's story, however, didn't end as gracefully. After the settlement, he doubled down on his narrative. Told anyone who'd listen that I was cold, greedy, brainwashed. A friend of mine who still lived near my parents said Victor had lost his job again. Rumors swirled about unpaid bills and mounting debt. But I didn't feel satisfaction, only distance. That life wasn't mine anymore. I took a weekend trip to the mountains, just me, a cabin, and my camera. The first night, I stood on a wooden deck, looking up at a sky full of stars I hadn't seen in years. No noise, no phones, just breath. I set up my tripod, aimed at the Milky Way, and hit the shutter. Click! The photo came out a little blurry, but beautiful. Like healing, not perfect, but real. When I got back to the city, there was a letter waiting for me in the mailbox of my apartment. No return address. Just my name on the envelope, in Victor's handwriting. I opened it. Inside, a single sentence. You'll regret walking away from this family. No signature. No apology on it. No surprise. I tossed it into the trash, and for the first time in my life, it didn't hurt. It didn't even sting, because I knew something he never would. Walking away wasn't the end. It was the beginning. 6 months after the letter from my father, the threat, The bitterness I no longer checked my mailbox with dread. That chapter was over. I was still living in the same apartment, but it felt different now. Brighter. Not because of the sunlight, but because of the weight I'd stopped carrying. Every space inside had been reclaimed. The couch wasn't where I sat crying after Chloe's GoFundMe. The kitchen wasn't where I ate cold leftovers after paying Victor's bills. The mirror no longer reflected someone exhausted and unsure. It showed me just me, and that was finally enough. One morning, after finishing a client report early, I logged into YouTube and searched for Chloe's video again. To my surprise, it had gone semi-viral. Over 300,000 views, thousands of comments. Some praised her honesty, others shared their own stories. A few called her privileged, manipulative, but the top comment caught me most. It takes courage to admit you let someone down. It takes even more to stop making them pay for it. I don't know why, but that line hit me harder than anything she'd said. Maybe because it was the one thing Victor never understood. I never replied to Chloe's video, but I did something else. I sent her a photo, just one. A picture I took during my mountain trip, the stars forming a perfect arc over a jagged ridge. No caption. No context, but she'd know what it meant. I was still out here, still looking up, still moving forward. She didn't text back, not that day, not that week. But that was okay. Some silences weren't empty, they were respectful. Therapy helped me sort the rest, not just the guilt, but the grief. Grief for a father I would never fully have. Grief for the brother Chloe would never fully know. Grief for all the years I lived like love had to be earned. I had to face the fact that I'd participated in my own pain, not because I was weak, but because I thought I had no choice. And now that I had chosen differently, I was finally free. My career blossomed in ways I never expected. I launched a small digital firm with Ezra, just the two of us at first, taking on odd jobs, building websites, helping local businesses upgrade their tech. But word spread. Soon we had clients from 3 states over. I named the business True North Design because that's what this whole journey had been, finding my compass, not the one my family handed me, but the one buried deep inside. One evening, Ezra invited me over to celebrate landing a big contract. His apartment was packed with laughter and the smell of barbecue, friends, music, someone's dog weaving between our legs. Ezra raised a glass. To Liam, he said, grinning, for finally charging what he's worth in business and in life. Everyone cheered. I smiled, not out of pride, but out of peace. This was what real connection looked like. No guilt, no leverage, just people showing up. A few weeks later, I got another letter, this time from my mom. Not a threat, not a guilt trip, just a letter? I know I wasn't there for you the way I should have been. I watched your father put everything on your shoulders, and I didn't stop it. I thought keeping the peace was love, but silence isn't safety. I see that now. I won't ask you to come back, but I wanted to say I'm sorry. I read it twice, then folded it carefully and placed it in a box I'd labeled Keep. Forgiveness wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was just letting yourself not feel anger anymore. Then, one day, Chloe showed up at my office, unannounced, nervous, holding a cup of coffee. Peace offering, she said, holding it out. I looked at her, really looked. She wasn't the same. Her makeup was minimal. Her clothes weren't designer. Her eyes weren't darting for approval. She looked grounded. We sat outside on a bench near the building. She didn't beg, didn't guilt trip. She just talked. I've been going to therapy, she said. Turns out there's a lot of me I hadn't looked at. A lot of stuff I blamed you for because it was easier than blaming myself. I nodded. Let her talk. Eventually, she said, "I'm not asking to be close again. I just wanted you to know I'm trying." That's it. We sat in silence for a while, watching traffic roll by. Then I said, "That's enough." She smiled. Not a perfect ending, but a start. I still get questions from people when I share parts of my story. Do you ever miss them? Do you regret cutting ties? Would you do it differently? And the honest answer? Yes, no, and maybe I miss the version of them I thought I had. I don't regret choosing peace over pain. And sure, I wish I'd spoken up sooner, but I wasn't ready then. You don't bloom before your time. Today, I still see Chloe sometimes. Coffee every few months, texts on birthdays. We're not close, but we're honest now. My mom sends cards, no pressure, just soft reminders that she's still out there. Victor. I haven't heard from him since the threat letter. Last I heard, he moved out of state, started a new job, still angry, still blaming. And that's okay. Some people never change. But that doesn't mean you have to stand still with them. The last time I visited the restaurant, the one where it all blew up, I was with a client for lunch. The place looked the same, but I didn't feel the same. I walked past the table where Victor lunged at me. The crash of dishes, the gasps, the moment my life split in two, I didn't flinch. I smiled, because I remembered what came next, the cold air on my face, the quiet hum of freedom, the feeling of finally walking away. I had thought that moment would break me, but it became the moment I broke free. So here's what I'll say to anyone still stuck in that same chair, being handed a bill you never asked for. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to walk away. You're allowed to stop bleeding for people who keep cutting. And when you do, you won't be lost. You'll be found. By yourself. By truth. By a life that is finally yours.